This is Cosmo Royale telling you to get ready for Gazbot and the Big Dawg Defender. Action activate!
Here we come! There they go! People rise! 'Cause they know we're super soldiers! We got cool clothes! You real soon! You see our pose! Tension! Energize! Let's go! Time to ride! Combine! Grease ties!
Hey, what's up? I am Gazbot. This is Action Activate. Today is actually Power Rangers Day, although when you be watching it, probably the day after, but happy late Power Rangers Day. And if I'm Gazbot and this is Action Activate, then with me as never before, a guest host. Who's this?
The wrong way.
Yeah, it's flipped. It's Campbell Cooley.
Hello there!
Campbell Cooley, international celebrity and voice actor and friend to all. How are you, sir?
Thank you. Very kind. Very kind. It's good to be back. It's been a while since we've hung out for a while, and so it's really good to be on here.
It's previously we've only done interviews, so this is the first time we've had you on a more casual setting. And for those that don't know, Campbell is a guest host. Like, we didn't do like the prep time I would do with a normal, like a guest. This is what me and Alex do. Like, okay, we kind of talked a little bit. Now let's do an episode. So I did let Campbell select the episode. And so what episode did you pick and why?
Okay, so I know to some people it might seem a bit early. It might even seem a bit self-serving, but I'm very first episode of Beast Morphers. Now, this Scrozzel is not in this, but I think the reason I like it is I think it's a fantastic intro episode for a series. I actually think it's one of the best intros to a season ever. And after you watch it, hopefully you'll agree with me. But it's I think it's a great episode, a lot of fun. It really just sets everything up. And no Scrozzel, alas, but
that is kind of a bummer. But you worked behind the scenes anyway, so even if you weren't acting in this episode, you were still a part of everything going on anyway.
Yeah, I was working behind the scenes. In fact, I wasn't even going to audition for the season. I was going to work mostly behind the scenes, like directing voice actors and that sort of thing. Right. And long story short, they just couldn't find a voice for Scrozzel, and they asked me to audition for it. And I was like, I don't have a chance for this. And then, you know the rest of the story. So,
what's funny is I feel like, I don't know how much you said this when you've been in interviews. Maybe you said it before, but certainly off the air, you said to me so many times, because for those that know, Campbell has had parts in just about every season since, is SPD your first season? Or did SPD up to and including Cosmic Fury, maybe confirmed, maybe not, but Campbell maybe can't see anything, but we've all seen pictures online, so it's all but confirmed. And many of these parts, he's been like, yeah, and I wasn't going to get it, and I wasn't going to audition, and I didn't think I'd get it, and yet he gets all of them. So clearly, something's going right there.
Something's going, yeah.
Yes. So I have not watched this episode since it was new. I might have watched it 2 or 3 times in that like month or so, but I haven't watched it since. And it's interesting because this was the first episode, to my knowledge, to my recollection, that we reviewed on this show, me and the Big Dog.
Wow.
Because we would talk about Power Rangers and get together and stuff, and somehow or other, I was like, well, why don't we, record this? And I know why. Because I have an art channel that is separate from this, and I was doing sketch art. And I was doing some Power Ranger stuff, and I started doing a couple little things, and it started getting some traction, but it was different. And I was like, we're always talking about stuff, Power Rangers, and every time I put something up, like, let's do a show. And Beast Morphers was about to come out, so we said, let's start with Beast Morphers. So I think our first episode was the trailer review, and then the second episode was this, which has now been how many years? 4 years? Is that right?
Gosh, at least 3.
Okay, so 3 or 4 years. And while I dissected the heck out of it back then, I don't remember it extremely well. I mean, I remember it, but so we're going to watch it again. Campbell probably remembers it better than me because he worked on it. But we're going to watch it the way the Big Dog and I have. So I'm going to put it up here. So it's on Netflix if you want to follow along. And I'm going to have to put this little screen thing up. I'm going to mute the theme song, but then after that, I will unmute it. But I am going to have closed captions. Now, the main difference between the episodes I've been doing with the Big Dog is Campbell might have things to say that are more relevant than me and Big Dog going, ha, 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 look at that, like Beavis and Butthead. And so I will pause and we will stop the proceedings to hear what Campbell has to say, which will probably be very enlightening and amazing. And the best thing you've ever heard. No, I would never set you up like that. It might be mildly interesting. How about that?
Mildly amusing, yeah.
Mildly amusing. Okay. So let me get this going. Now, one thing I realized right away, which is probably true of a lot of first episodes, is like, oh yeah, there's no
After years of waiting,
just
we
go.
are now just hours away from when Mayor Daniels will pull the switch for the first time, and clean MorphX energy will flow
Nice
from the Power
CGI.
Rangers
Yeah.
Morphin
Yeah,
grid
it's pretty
into
good.
the
I like the
towers
angles too to make it look
all
extra
around
big the way they.
Harbor.
Yeah.
We're tapping into the
This area where
energy
she's
source that
doing the
gives
interview,
Power Rangers
if you
their
turned it around,
heroic
people would
abilities.
recognize it's
Is
like a
this
space where
stroke
the
of
Rangers
genius that will
constantly
save
fight
the planet
monsters
from
and stuff.
pollution? Or is
In-
it a
in
fact,
downtown
a dangerous
area?
mistake?
Yeah, it's in
Let's go
it's like
find
it's currently called the Arena. It's changed names over the years. But like there's this special section outside where I've lost count. Every season they have at least several major fights between Rangers and monsters and stuff.
Right. That's cool.
Yeah.
The repurposing though.
1, 2.
It's a good introduction of Blaze too.
Yeah.
It's definitely one of those things where like, oh, either one of these could be the leader, depending on how they want to go. You know.
Sarcasm. The only
Yeah,
way you're going to learn karate
definitely.
is by following what I do. And
I
practicing.
realize that they're trying to mimic
waiting on me to
the
teach
I guess the
moves that
juice
are a
bar
little bit
from
more
the original Mighty Morphin with
challenging.
this particular hangout. But
Yeah.
I gotta say, I really like this set. I love all the sets, but I
Yeah.
really like this set. It's got all the colors and everything, and
I agree, and it was good to offset because the base was so gray and military and everything. So it let them still be teenagers, even though they're essentially soldiers.
right. And then of course contrasting with the cyber dimension, which is just death and destruction and everything.
Yeah. I just went and turned the sound off so that we
you
have the
should.
subtitles on, and I figure if we need to hear something, we can. But that way, instead of having to constantly pause it, and I can pause it if we need to look at something, but this way we could just
Right. Right.
But it was an intentional homage to the juice bar. I always assumed. But,
I'm guessing that. That's the vibe that I got.
right. Now we're just watching the episodes. But this was also good because I think fans, I certainly do, but I think fans in general like seeing the civilian actors do some martial arts and some acrobatics and some athleticism.
Yeah.
And not that you can't be an actor that doesn't know karate, but it just ties it together. Like, oh, this could be the person in the suit, they all get superpowers, but seeing that they're kind of skilled and powerful outside of the suit, I think is always a helpful thing to tie it all together.
Right. And, I don't know if this was intentional or if it just worked out, but it does seem like there's always some kind of season where like the Red Ranger has issues with his father.
I could think of 2 right off the bat. And there's probably 3 with this one. There's probably more. Time Force I'm thinking of, and Overdrive.
I think RPM.
Yeah, RPM. RPM in this is another tie. We're gonna have tons of spoilers for those that don't know.
Yeah.
So if you haven't watched this, just don't watch or be ready for spoilers. But yeah, that's another tie-in that the leader with the military father, and there's some issues there. And it's not military, but still a mayor being like the authority figure, not just to the child, but to the world. A child.
Right.
He's like 20.
I think I was also drawn to maybe watching Beast Morphers again for today, because I'm currently doing like live reactions to RPM, which I've never seen before.
Which is
crazy. I've never seen it, but it's kind of like RPM. Go ahead. What was that?
I'll say it's not crazy that there's seasons you haven't seen. It's crazy that having worked on Beast Morphers, you haven't seen RPM, considering they're so intertwined. Like, I would have thought it'd be homework for people working on the show,
Yeah, and the more I watch, RPM now, I think I'm up to episode 5 now. It's kind of like, wow, they really are kind of like these. Well, we're not going to give anything away here, but like they're just like these bookends. Yeah,
no, we can have spoilers. This has been 4 years.
Okay, all right. Well,
I'm saying if you're watching this and haven't seen RPM and or Beast Morphers, it is going to get spoiled. If you don't want it to get spoiled, stop watching. But at this point, we're just talking whatever you want to say. So don't censor yourself for spoilers.
Cool. Now, this building where they're using for the Grid Battle Force headquarters, I think it's the it's either Telecom or Vodafone. It's basically like a phone company.
Right. So they just slapped some logos on it, and otherwise it was a building that was already existing.
Basically, yeah, the building already existed, but it did have this kind of futuristic quality to it.
So did they, and maybe you know this, maybe you don't, like they have a bunch of exterior shots and then they have interior shots, but I'm imagining they're not filming in this building constantly. Did they just take a bunch of shots and then have a set somewhere as well, I guess? Or,
I think my understanding is most of the time, the exterior shots, there's usually like an interior set elsewhere. Now, I could be wrong. I'm almost certain that maybe for this intro thing where Mayor Daniels comes in, I think this may have actually been the lobby of this particular place, and they just put up a few things.
And then once they get to the lobby, now you're in a set for whatever else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I made us give us a 2-shot here. I like the joke, the Betty joke, where she's like, "This looks a lot like you." He's like, "It's me."
Yeah.
He's like, "Let's find out about that." Like, definitely, Ben and Betty are not the best or worst comic relief, in my opinion. But this was an example of where I'm like, "Ooh, this is good." Kind of like I like this. This is a good direction where she's like taking her job too seriously. Is like,
Yeah, I got to say that for
coming down off the step stool because she's short.
Yeah. Hilarious. And so the physical comedy here with Cosme scanning him and just getting thrown back, I love that. I think Christina and Cosme do a fantastic job with these characters.
Yes.
And they're very brave because historically whoever gets to play like the comical sidekicks, like the Bulk and Skull characters,
right.
Usually they've got an uphill battle going for them.
Agreed.
But I think they do a wonderful job. And for what it is,
I think they're both, and we said this originally, they're both great actors. They both do a lot of good face acting, a lot of physical comedy, and they're the parts that I'll speak for Big Dog, didn't like, and I think a lot of people, wasn't the fault of the actors. It was like just weird, over the top, cartoony stuff that would happen. That wasn't like they did a bad job, but it was just like, what is happening? Are they made of rubber in this scene? And I've had that complaint about other ones too, like the physics of it just breaks reality a little bit.
Right.
But I do like also that they made them be related to, I forget, the general or the head honcho, because that also explained why they'd have jobs if they were like not necessarily the best and stuff.
I think General Burke.
Burke, yes, thank you. Yeah,
and there's something else that I really like that they did with Ben and Betty is that they weren't always just kind of like goofy and like it's like there were episodes where like they were invaluable, and I think those episodes really they shined.
They were allies. They weren't just comic relief. They would be counted as allies. Well, and towards the end, I think a lot of people, myself included, were like, "Oh, they're going to be Rangers." Like even if it's just like the final episode, like it really, and they were wearing colors of like purple and it was like, "Oh, okay, yeah." They're like a lot of people. Like I still hope if there's some kind of reunion or maybe in Cosmic Fury at some point they show up as Rangers because it just would be cool, like
that would be cool. That would be really cool. So
I always like the seasons that aren't just kids in high school. And not that I'm against kids in high school, but we've seen that so often. Whenever they do something different, and they put the juice bar analog in there, which is nice because it lets them still be kids and have fun. But it's just, it's cool to have a base that isn't high school, and it's, I don't mean base because there's always like a cool base, but like Lightspeed Rescue or this or RPM, like where it's like, okay, here's a facility and here's a structure around what we're doing beyond just like, whoops, we got to cut class to go do this,
Yeah, definitely. And I also love they have so many family dynamics in this particular season. They've got Devin and his father. They got Robbie and his mother. They've got Zoe and her mother, who's the reporter.
And then the brother thing with Nate and Silver, whose name I'm
right. Yeah.
And his parents too, actually, now that I think about it. Because they're like off gallivanting around the world.
As well.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah. I remember this first episode. Oh, and now like 10 minutes in here. And I remember, I think is it 10 minutes? It's pretty close. It's like a third of the way through.
I don't really know why they did that, but
I thought it was a first episode thing, but it stayed all season. And I always thought that was weird because Like the whole point, as I understood it from like an advertising point of view, is you want people to know what show you're watching. Look at these cool scenes that you might see. And anybody just tuning in would be like 10 minutes of people talking, which as an adult is fine. But as a kid, I don't know. Do you even know what it's like if you don't know what you're watching, you know?
Yeah. I got to say that I absolutely adore the sets for this season. Like Grid Battle Force here, every time I walked through it, it was like I was like a kid in a candy store. It was just like, oh, this is so cool,
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I imagine it being almost like being on a spaceship or like the Enterprise or something.
Yeah, it felt like you were on a spaceship or maybe in some kind of like secret underground bunker, and it actually was a big set, but they designed it in a way that they were like, hallways going places. They didn't go anywhere, and they would bend around, and then all you got to do is just like if you want to create a different section of the base, you just you turn the camera around, and suddenly it has a completely different perspective. So
it was modular, I think is the word.
It was yeah. And I tell you, the set designer, I think her name's Tracy Collins, just did a phenomenal job with these sets and then the Dino Fury sets. And she was also the woman who designed Scrozzle.
Oh, so you have a special affinity for her.
A special place in my heart.
Did she do the props as well?
I think she probably did.
Because I remember especially liking the props that they were like sort of almost cartoony, not in a bad way, but like just very like here's a pipe and a big button and it's green, and like I remember commenting like Scrozzle always had like a laptop that looked like it came out of a cartoon somehow. It didn't look like a regular laptop. Like
right. I tell you what, if I didn't have a conscience and I thought I could have gotten away with it, I would have walked off the set when they finished filming with that laptop. I wanted something of Scrozzle.
Or the helmet that the actor must have
worn. Oh, I never would have gotten away with that.
I wonder, I assume you don't have a replica of that, right?
I don't.
Do you have any replicas of any of your characters' headpieces?
No. Although I have been putting out feelers to people about maybe designing a Scrozzle head for me to maybe.
Well, I was going to say there's a lot of makers out there, big and small, and very often they will collaborate with actors so that they can have a piece to like put at a table or have at their thing or whatever. And like if anybody's watching that makes helmets that wants to make, Scrozzle will be your top pick, I assume.
Absolutely, Scrozzle, and then maybe Snide, but
But you would take anything somebody would build for you, but Scrozzle is your top pick.
Yes, anything.
Well, but I was even just Slither's a good one too, but I feel like he'd be a lot harder.
That hat is so big. I think
it'd be hard to
travel with.
Yeah. Okay, so Scrozzle's top pick. There we go. Oh, I meant to put this back on for everybody. Oh, yeah, and I remember going back to this isn't family dynamics, but the way they're introducing characters. Zoe, for a long time, was my favorite on the show. Eventually, Steel, I called him Silver before, but Steel edged her out because I love cheeseball characters. But I loved how it's like, just like, I'm the laundry person, but I want to do good. I want to do my part. And then she's just such a go-getter and such a pure, I want to do like an optimist and enthusiastic. And like, I always like characters like that, Yeah. If they were all like that, it wouldn't work. But, especially when you have like Ravi, who's like, I'm all business. And, and then Devon's who's kind of like, I guess I'm doing this. But, like having that one, the heart of the team,
Right. This set that's in the base, believe it or not, it's actually in a warehouse. It's the same warehouse where they have the cyber dimension. Okay. And I think that they probably filmed this before. Like all they have to do is move the walls over and then just move all the cyber dimension stuff over, and it becomes a completely different set. If you look towards the top, you can't really see it here, but if you're watching this without the filter, you can kind of see in some shots the walls only go up so high, and you can look beyond them and see that you're actually in a giant warehouse.
Is that like this shot right here?
Sort of, maybe. There's some better versions, but
yeah. I can sometimes get away with letting it play a little bit, without the thing on.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'll just let it go. Just like, wasn't me.
Wasn't
I
me.
do love how I'm all like commenting on like the story and the characters, and you're like, here's how they built it. But I'm not saying that sarcastically. I love that you're coming, because me and Big Dog kind of have the same perspective, but you're like completely the opposite end, just the nuts and bolts of it, which is awesome.
Yeah. No, I snuck onto these sets, but I didn't have to sneak onto them, but I kind of felt like, I didn't belong because, I was more of the voice talent.
You were allowed to be there, but there was no reason for you to be there.
I was allowed to be there, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a hilarious story. I won't tell it now, but you've got to remind
Why?
people. No, because it's more suited to maybe if we're watching episode 2, but it's about my first time walking onto the villain set and meeting the actor who played Scrozzle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Do you want to shout their name out? Because a lot of people probably wouldn't know the suit actor.
Oh yeah, so the suit actor for Scrozzle is a Japanese guy named Koji Momura. You can find him on Twitter. Really talented, amazingly talented. He was also the suit actor for Slither in Dino Fury.
Very different characters too.
Very different characters. So, and I suppose there's a kind of a relationship. There's a love interest here,
right? Well, it's almost like a because then she becomes the cyber character. And so it's weird because it's still there, but it's like not really her. So it's like evil version of her, but there's still like a bit of that chemistry there. It's actually more interesting because, again, spoilers, when they eventually save her, it's sort of like, good, you're saved, but you're not a ranger. And I guess we're in love and it's fine. Like they have like one episode where and so it's like this dramatic love story that gets resolved kind of like, oh, it's fine now.
Yeah. Oh, I just love these sets.
Yeah.
I just love them.
A lot of fun. And that I'm looking at that tube behind him that's blinking up. That actually reminds me of the original command center from season 1.
Yeah. And we're back where the reporter was at the beginning, where they do a lot of the fight scenes for other seasons and stuff. And then they do probably a few fight scenes for this season as well.
Sure.
There's even if you remove the grid, you're probably going to have trouble seeing it. But like anybody watching this scene, if you've got like high def, not quite yet. There's a shot when the mayor pulls the ceremonial like switch to light up the Morphex tower. If you look really closely at the top of the Morphex tower as the green is shooting up, you'll actually see they've digitally put in birds flying away like they've been crouched. Yeah, they're crouched in the thing. So
we missed it. I think oh, here it is.
Yeah, here we go.
It's going up.
Oh yeah, you can't really see it in that shot. You'll need to like have a really high def thing and zoom in. But
okay, so that was the shot, but because I'm watching it on my computer, we can't. If you have a Blu-ray of it, maybe you can see it.
When I first saw it, I was blown away. I was just like, it was a detail that you just wouldn't have even noticed unless you were looking for it. And it really just brought it to life.
Yeah. This was cool too, because you often have, again, I'm talking story. You often have the story of like the evil ranger or the A team that gets bounced for the B team. But this was a case where like, they were immediately corrupted. Like you didn't even get to see them action for a second. And two of them get knocked right out. Like it was so like, you kind of maybe thought like, oh, maybe there's going to be one of them, but like, oh no, 2 right away. And they built, especially, I'm forgetting her name, but the evil yellow, what's her name? I'm sorry. Roxy, thank you. Roxy, especially like Blaze, you're like, well, maybe he's making him a jerk. But I remember not thinking that would happen to Roxy. Like I didn't expect that to necessarily be knocked out of me. But then Laundry Girl to the rescue.
Laundry Girl to the rescue.
Yeah.
No,
I'm not afraid of big problems.
I face them.
I solve big problems. Yeah. You go, girl. And then look, we saw, and then they run. Yeah, they did a really good job. Yeah, but he goes. That's the thing. But he goes. They did a good job of setting up these characters, and then poof. Okay. Yeah. To me, that's exactly the level of like slapstick that's acceptable because it's believable. It happened, and like that could happen to a human, so it's fine. It's when they do that and then like do a double backflip and bounce off the wall, and like that gets silly sometimes.
I love the glitching of these cyber characters, but the thing about like I remember chatting with the producer, and it's not just when they transform into these villains, like what you can see with Roxy here. It's when they morph as well. I love the tornado effect. I just think that is so awesome.
It was so unique with the animal roaring and stuff. Like, it was not the same thing we always see. It was very cool. I agree.
And that bit we just missed where she says, like, I work in laundry in uni because I'm just trespassing. I think it's the best line in the whole episode.
Yeah. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is a repurposed Sentai suit that was just recolored for Roxy. And Blaze was original. Is that how it works?
I don't know about Blaze. I know, but definitely Roxy's was repurposed.
Yeah. I know when Blaze gets his second, when he becomes Cyber Blaze, I know that was another repurposed suit.
Yeah.
Do you know why they changed the color for Roxy's suit?
I don't actually.
Just to make her evil yellow, I guess.
Well, I guess because they needed a yellow,
Yeah. Did they actually paint it, or is that done digitally?
No, my guess is they probably would have painted it because it just would have been too. It wouldn't have been cost effective to digitally change the color in every episode.
That's what I thought, but I didn't know if it was a thing of well, they've ruined a part of cinema history by ruining the other suit,
Right. And this civilian fight, I mean, to me, this is one of the greatest civilian fights in
a great first episode. Yeah, I mean, they had a lot of great civilian fights and a lot of incorporation of props and comedy. And yeah, I agree. This whole first episode, you're right. There's a very, very strong start. You said that earlier, and I concur.
Yeah.
Yeah, just throwing barrels, boom. Yeah, this is great. And it also does that thing of showing okay, we're just regular people, but we're still going to do our best to try, and
Right.
Here comes Nate.
Yeah, there's. I remember those of us who worked on the show, actors, behind the scenes, etc. We got to go to before it went to air. We got to go to a special screening where we saw the first 2 episodes.
Right.
And I remember this particular scene. The audience was just mesmerized.
Oh yeah.
And there's a moment at the end. I'll mention it when we get to it. But there was a moment at the end where just there's this one shot and everyone just went crazy.
Right. Master of the obvious.
The obvious. Yeah. Instantly, just trivia-wise, that line, I believe, was originally Blaze's line. And then for some reason, they switched it. I don't know why.
Maybe because Roxy just said it, right?
Roxy ended up saying it.
Maybe because I always took her as the more snarky, sarcastic one. They were both kind of jerks, but Blaze was not as. She seemed more interested in looking cool about
right.
She was evil Spider-Man.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah, teleporters. More props that are there's nothing wrong with them, but they're kind of simple and they look like they came out of Batman the Animated Series or something, which is something I noticed a lot about the props. You know what I mean? Again, not that they're bad, but just very stylized.
Right. Setting it up, and of course this all kind of, I suppose you could argue it sets it up for later at the end of season 1 when they steal they try to steal the Morphex towers, but
yeah, and then I remember because this came out right around when Lightning Collection started, because I remember Beast Morpher Red being one of the very first. I don't know if it was wave 1 or wave 2, but
right.
And it was the thing where then we got Ravi right after, and then Nate came a little while later, and then we just got Zoe.
And this is the shot I was telling you about when this pulled back. Right. I remember everybody in the audience went crazy. They just thought that was the most spectacular fight, and the special effects here with the hole in the ground just
yeah. No, it was very strong. Yeah, it's funny because this season, overall, I liked it a lot, but it did have some ups and downs. But it's you forget a strong start and a strong finish count for a lot. And even though in the middle there were some not great episodes, but it started strong and it ended strong, and that's most of it for me.
Yeah, I remember there's a thing in the food service industry and restaurants, if we have a meal, a 3-course meal, the first meal's okay, the middle part's terrible, you can save it with a good dessert.
Right. When I draw, a lot of times, if I'm unhappy with it, I'll save it with the coloring. So again, it's the same thing. It's that polish. You could sometimes like, it's kind of mediocre, but let me put some dramatic lighting in, and all of a sudden, you don't notice how badly I drew the foot or whatever it was.
Right. So
This is where they find out about the others. Duplicated them. Creating essentially their evil twins. I forgot he literally calls them evil twins. That's awesome.
evil twins.
Linked to the morphing grid. Yeah, and it's also cool, like, a lot of seasons are just sort of like don't explain the morphing grid, or it's mystical, or but this is like, no, look, this is energy we found, we could tap into it, and we're experimenting with it, and like because of that, people are trying to steal it, that are, and it kind of just makes everything make a little more sense that, there's this other dimension, we're villains, and then when they start having crossovers later, it makes sense too, because they're aware of the morphing grid and they're aware of how it touches different people and realities, and like, yeah,
it's almost like again, going back to my bookend theme, it's like with RPM. It's not like this mystical force or something. It's like it's this energy thing that they've found that they're tapped into in order to create the Ranger.
Yeah.
So
I'm trying to remember how far. Oh, I'm proud to take her place.
Yeah. No, it's pretty close, but it's just I'm trying to remember some of the stuff. I know that Devin just wants to like get into the simulator because he's like it's a video game for him.
They had the video game thing be such a big part in the beginning, and then they kind of forgot about it for a long time until right before the crossover, and then he's like, "I'm going to this convention or whatever it was on his motorcycle," and it's like, "Oh yeah, he's got a problem with video games." And there you have it, episode.
And there it is, episode 1.
Revisited. Let me turn that on.
Ooh, Revox's Revenge. For another time.
Yeah, we may or may not have. Well, we'll definitely have you on the show again. We may or may not have you on as a guest host again. But if we did, would you want to do the next episode? You had talked about another one.
Absolutely.
That was fun. It is interesting to rewatch it with fresh eyes and see. And especially, I hate to bag on other seasons, but I think it came right after Ninja Steel, which, I've said is one of my least favorite seasons, and I don't think I'm alone. So it was a big upswing from that. Whatever you think of the season, it definitely was huge improvement from the previous season. And yeah, there have been critics of things that have happened since then, but I think that quality level, while it may go up and down a little bit, it's been consistently higher than it had been in the previous season, put it that way.
Right. Well, and I wonder how much of that is just because Chip Lynn had been, I suppose, meticulously planning for this season and the hopes of getting it off the ground. And it was like, we haven't really gone into it, but this really was like a sequel 10 years in the making.
Right. Well, we could talk a little bit now if you want to, anything else you want to tie up. One thing, I think I've said this before, but if I did, it was like 3 years ago, so I'll say it again. I met Chip Lynn once. I don't know him, but I met him at San Diego Comic-Con. I was at a panel, and this was before we did the show, and I was at a panel for, I think it was before they announced Super Dino Charge. And I had kind of only been back into Power Rangers for like a year or two. Like this is when I was just like, okay, now I'm really into it. I'm going to go to this panel. And it was cool because it was like a big thing, like where all the actors were right in front of me. And then we came outside and all the new Super Dino Charge like suits were there. And like, it was just like a fun little thing. But Chip Lynn was there and everybody was talking to like Yoshi and Brennan and all the actors or and I'm like, that's Chip Lynn. And like, the average person didn't know who that was, so I'm like, hey, and so we chatted for a minute, and I forget most of what we talked about other than me being like, hey, I like Power Rangers. Good job. But he had said something at that time about like different seasons being adapted or not adapted. And he's like, I really want to do Go Busters. He's like, they wouldn't let me, but I want to. And there's like, after a certain number of years, those suits are going to decompose and I won't be able to. And like, he's like, but I really want to do it. And then fast forward a couple of years when I heard it, I'm like, oh, he got it. This is what he wanted. And I was like, oh, this is like, so I was very hopeful going into it. But it was just such a cool, because you hear people, and granted, he's like, on a higher level of professionalism than like my friends, but you always hear people talk about like their big plans or if I could. And I felt like I heard his little like dream of, oh, I wish I could do this. And then a few years later, I'm like, you got it. It's happening. Right.
I say this with a degree of reluctance because it sounds very self-congratulatory. It has nothing to do with me, but one of the, I guess, badges of honor that I can wear is that when they went into pre-production for Beast Morphers, I was, and I'm not going to spoil it. If you want to spoil it, you can. I was one of maybe a handful of people. I don't know how many it was. It would have been me, the ADR director, a certain actor, Chip Lynn, and the writers. So maybe just a handful of people that knew the twist, that knew the secret. And I remember, I mean, when I found out, I was just like, holy cow. And I had to sit on that for almost 2 years.
That's impressive.
And if you'll remember, the very first interview I did on YouTube was with your channel, and you said, "Oh, we're going to do this live," and I was like, no. Because if I let this slip, let this twist slip, I am done for. So we got to record this.
I do. Yes, I do remember that because a lot of times people want to be able to chime in and ask questions, live. And and I didn't, to be clear, he didn't tell me. I didn't know, but it was like, I have things I can't say that I don't want to accidentally say. And if he did, and it was not live, I could cut it out and save it. But yeah, I remember that. And I also remember when we were getting towards the middle end of season 2, you had sort of said like, you know what, watch him as fast as you can. And maybe you should do a live reaction to us because, and you were right, because it was getting spoiled before it even came out. It was crazy. It was just, And I won't say it just on the off chance, but everybody knows, if you know what we're talking about, the big twist ending of season 2.
Yeah.
And that was after all the crazy crossover episodes and the whole team coming back, Austin St. John coming back, who had, not been like back in like forever. And even like, I liked all that, but like, I really loved the episode where Dr. K came back too. It was just her and Nate. That was like, cause the others had the spectacle, but it's like, what you really want to see, which you don't see as often, especially in the newer crossovers, is like the Rangers relating to each other about like their experiences. How do you do this? And then they go fight, and it's hard to get a lot of time to do that. And so the Nate and Dr. K, while it wasn't as flashy as some of the others, it was 2 scientists that were supporting this team that had the weight of the world on their shoulders that could like really relate. And then she helped him out. And like, I enjoyed that one a lot.
Yeah. And I am so glad that, I tell you what, watching your and Alex's live reaction to the episode where the big reveal took place, that to me, that just brought me so much joy watching you two, see it all unfold. And it was just like 2 kids on Christmas morning. And that was why I just pleaded with you, like, do not go online. Just watch this as quick as you can. I didn't want it ruined. I mean,
and unlike you, we had both seen RPM, so it was even a bigger deal.
Yeah.
No, it was
and I really loved watching, like the theories that you had, and it was like, is it so and so? No, it sounds like somebody. And then just seeing it all kind of pieced together, and then like, that was just wonderful.
And you watched us do it, but everybody was doing that. That's what was fun about it. It was like everybody was doing it, and it was that's what gets the fan base energized, is having things to talk about beyond, oh, cool suit, they got the monster of the week this time, like just having more, more. And so I'm, obviously I'm excited to see what they do with Cosmic Fury. It's both exciting and disappointing that it's only 10 episodes, because like, well, we'd like more, but maybe there's going to be no filler and it's just going to be bam, 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 crazy story going. And then after that, it's going to be a while before we get anything new. So not to bring us down, but like at least we have that to look forward to. All right, so we should wrap up. Anything else you want to say before we start wrapping up?
I mean, there's just so many things I could talk about this series and some of the stuff we just saw, and we're talking about the big twist and everything. But you know what? Let's maybe save that. If you have me back and we do episode 2, maybe we can talk more about it then. Okay, we'll leave it there. Then in the meantime, I'm going to ask you, well, first of all, thank you for being here. Thank you for having me. And then second of all, I don't know what things you might want to plug, but one thing you can plug is your Etsy store, Cool Monsters. Do you want to talk about this? Oh, thank you. So, I try to get around to conventions and stuff, but it's been tough because I sometimes have to fly myself, and I can't always afford to fly out to conventions. So for those who want autographs from me, you can go to my Etsy store and you can order autographs that I'll be offering, at any convention. And I will still honor a recent thing I put on Twitter saying that for the next 5 people that order an autograph, I will include a special surprise that, trust me, you'll be very happy with. It's a piece of Power Rangers history.
Ooh, but we don't know what it is. Well, you know what it is, but you're not going to tell us.
I know what it is, but let's just say one person bought one, and when he found out what it was, he went crazy. He was just like, "Thank you so much."
Okay,
so
there you
not
go.
patting my own back. I'm just saying, just like you'll be happy. You'll be happy.
Awesome. Well, and speaking of conventions, do you have any coming up?
I have been announced to attend Ranger Stop in Orlando in November. Last year, it was almost ended by a hurricane, so hopefully we won't have that problem here. I'm waiting to hear back on potentially another convention, which, fingers crossed on that. And for those of you who don't know it, I have a YouTube channel. It's not a big channel or anything, but I try to put little videos up on.
What's the name of the YouTube channel? Is it just Campbell Cooley?
It's just called Campbell Cooley, voice actor at large, and it's got behind the scenes things, me auditioning for stuff, me recording stuff. There it is. And I've also been doing live reaction to RPM, a series that, even though I did some voice work for, I know almost nothing about.
You also have a cute cat video, so officially internet is ready for you.
It's got to be the most anticlimactic cat video of all time. It's like there's hardly anything to it, but I just thought, what the heck? The internet needs more cat videos. So
that's what they say. Oops, I'm getting shorter here by the minute. All right, so there you have it. So Ranger Stop for sure, maybe something else. Etsy store. Is there any voice work or face acting work coming up that you can talk about that people could be on the lookout for?
Not really. There's some NDAs in place, but let's just say,
I know you've been doing a lot of anime lately. You want to mention anime you've done that maybe people are unaware of that you have already done, but you could tell them about?
Yeah, I've done. I got to voice the villain on One Piece, a giant sumo named Yorashima. There's a few other characters in Overlord, the Fruit of Evolution, a few other small things, and I also have a Twitter page. Please come visit me on Twitter. I love chatting with people on Twitter.
Yeah.
Thank you. And there's something else. Yeah, don't reach out to me on Facebook because I really don't use Facebook anymore.
Don't reach out to him. Hey, stop talking to him on Facebook.
Stop it.
You don't have a Twitter page anymore, do you? It's X.
Oh, right.
I keep calling it Twitter too, but it's Do you tweet people? Now you X them? I don't know what the verbiage is.
X them, I guess. I don't know.
Part of me thinks it's going to turn back to Twitter in like 6 months or a year.
I hope so, because I'm not.
Are you on Blue Sky? Speaking of
what?
Are you on Blue Sky? Speaking of social media?
No, I'm not. I'm not.
I'm
trying to keep all my social media.
Okay. There you go. Okay, so Twitter or X is the best place, but you can also check out YouTube and Etsy, Facebook. Get out of here.
Yeah, please visit me on YouTube. Like the channel. I need subscribers. It's good for the algorithm. That's what they say. I don't know what it means. But.
Well, clearly we have such a successful channel. I know exactly what I'm doing. All right. Well, thanks again. And until next time, I have been Gazbot.
And I've been Campbell Cooley, voice actor at large.
And
to the power.
End credits. Trying to unmute your mic so you can talk over the credits, but it's not letting me for some reason. Can you unmute your own mic? It won't let me. Now you can talk over the credits. The credits with no credits whatsoever.
All right. Well, you know what? We need to do something like that so that I can be at the beginning and the end of the video.
Yeah. Well, if you wouldn't be a true guest host if we didn't have some weird technical difficulties and then just end for no reason with us on the screen.
Yeah. Just cut it. Just kill it.